Hello, and welcome to Soul Aligned CEO Podcast. I'm your host, Jenny Mori, and I'm so excited to be here with you today, recording a solo episode after being on a little bit of a hiatus the last few months. So, welcome. What I want to share with you today are three main things. First, what I was doing on my break. And then I want to share a little bit about a concept that really runs through me at my core. And that's the concept of listening to the season of life that you are in. And then finally, I want to share with you guys about a really awesome adventure that I am going to be going on over the next year. And that is embarking on doing 50 new things for my upcoming 50th birthday. So I'm so glad that you all are here. I hope that you have had a wonderful summer and a start to fall. It's crazy to me that it is almost the holidays again. 2024 has just flown by. And at the same time, it has been a very productive and very introspective year for me. So, I want to share with you guys. So, I started the podcast last fall and I went kind of full force into it. I was so excited about it. I had all kinds of ideas and was just really ready to do something new. And I went really hard for about 7 or 8 months, recording episodes every week and editing and meeting with guests and laying out shows. And I got to the point earlier this summer in June, July, where it had just become a lot. And I realized that I needed to slow down and I needed to really take a look at what was the purpose of the podcast and what was the message that I was really trying to get across in each of my recordings. And so that's what I did. And I kept trying to record, but different things would happen. The mic would kind of have a funny sound. The video wasn't connecting properly. And so I always am very attuned to what the universe is telling me. And so even though I felt like I needed to keep recording and sharing information and sharing stories, I also realized that I needed to take a step back. So, one thing that also is really important to me is really being introspective on why I'm doing something and not just to do it, just to do it. I really only include things in my life that bring me a lot of joy and that I'm really passionate about. And so, Dr. Wayne Dyer always used to say if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And so I realized that I needed to take a step back and just reevaluate and kind of look at the podcast differently because I wanted to love it, but something was missing. And I realized after taking the break this summer that the thing that was really missing was me. And at the core of this podcast, it's really a show about being soul aligned. And it's about listening to your heart and really understanding, what you're here for. And so I realized that I was forcing episodes in a way, like I was trying to get out content and I was trying to come up with things to talk about when it really didn't always feel like 100% like natural and me. And so, I still want to do conversations with entrepreneurs and I still want to share all those stories and plant seeds and really inspire. That will always be the foundation of this podcast. But being soul aligned for me is so much more than the work that we do to make an income here on this planet. Being soul aligned is really about how you live your life. And I had the realization that I had actually stopped living, like, fully. I was going through the motions. I was managing my other business. I was fulfilling family obligations. I was cranking out podcasts and social media posts, but I really wasn't living. And I needed to take a step back and find that joy again. I think many of us on a spiritual consciousness awakening journey get to a point where it's a lot of information, right? And especially if you've been on this path for several years. I have about 6 years now, and it can get really heavy. And, there's so much introspective work and shadow work and reflection. And, it's very isolating. And I think what I realized is, I really want to live again and be out there and in the world. And, doing the podcast was one more thing that was kind of keeping me in this space. And so I think that's why I was kind of butting up against it. So, after taking the last 4 months off, I feel fantastic. I've had a lot of opportunity to just work on myself and what I want and focus on health and all of those things. And then I really started to miss the podcast. And so that's when I knew that it was time to think about coming back. And I wanted to come back in a way that was natural. Like, I wanted to explain where I've been and what I've been doing. And I didn't just disappear. And so that leads me to the second topic that I really want to share with you is this concept of listening to the season of life that you are in. And so, what do I mean by that? So, seasons, right? Like, we all know the four seasons: spring, summer, fall, and winter. And we cycle through those differently, right? Depending on where you live in the country. Now, we think about seasons and we think about weather, whether it's summer and it's sunny and fall and the leaves are falling, and winter, it might get cooler and you might even have snow. I like to think about the seasons with that, but also the layer of gardening. Those of you that know me and follow me on social media know that I love gardening. I love growing food. I love growing flowers. I love everything about the garden. And in a garden, there are definitely four seasons. And they may or may not always sync up exactly with weather seasons, depending on where you are in the country. And so let me kind of share with you this analogy. So in gardening, the springtime is where you get your garden ready. You make sure that the soil is good, you organize your garden, you get all of your seeds, and you get everything planted. And, it's a period of like action and doing and, getting things done. And so in the springtime, you're doing all of that planting. And so it can be a lot of work. And so you get through the spring and you're taking care of your plants and you're starting to see it grow. And then comes the summer. And then the summer is exciting because it's like the warmth and the energy kind of rapidly makes your garden expand. And so, in a gardening sense, summer is also a lot of work because as your plants are growing, then you're also simultaneously dealing with maybe any invasive growth that you don't want. Maybe there's pests or other wildlife, so you're managing all of these things in the summer because you've worked so hard. And so spring and summer are definitely like hardworking seasons from a gardening standpoint. And then you get to fall. And a lot of times in the fall is where, symbolically you reap your harvest. And so, again, I'm not talking about like weather seasons. And so, spring, could be a couple months, summer, a couple months, and then fall, boom, 1 month of really picking and harvesting and enjoying the fruits of your labor. And so, fall in gardening, or that harvest time represented, really is a time for enjoyment and excitement and celebration and feeling proud of what you just grew and accomplished. And so, after that fall season is winter. And that's where things slow down and you're really not growing. You're letting the garden recover. You're letting the soil recuperate its nutrients and you're taking a pause. And so that metaphor of kind of how a garden grows, I look at life in the same way. And so, if I kind of in retrospect look at my life over the last 3 decades, I've had many, many years of constant spring and summer and just repeating spring and summer, spring and summer. And there was a good several decades of my life where I never really let myself enjoy a fall and that celebration and that harvest. And I definitely didn't let myself enjoy a winter of like slowing down and pausing. And so, again, within your own life, these seasons don't necessarily match up to the weather seasons that you are experiencing. And so, what I realized in July was that as much as I was pushing and wanting to keep creating, I realized that I was really in a winter and I needed to slow down. And so, I kind of had been going so hard in this spring season of creating and then summer season of like keeping going and keeping going. And then I never let myself really have a fall and celebrate. And then I realized I really needed to pause and have a winter, even though it was the dead of summer here in Florida, in mid to late July. But I recognized that because I could sense it in my body. I could sense that it was no longer enjoyable. Like I was just repeating a cycle. And so with my own life, I decided to pause. And it was hard for me because there was a big social aspect to the podcast. And I've met so many incredible people and had been engaging on social media daily that the thought of, okay, I'm going to take a step back. Well, then what's going to happen with those connections and that experience? But I knew that I needed to. And so I've really taken the last 4 months in somewhat of a winter. And that might not make a lot of sense. But for me, again, even though it was July through the beginning of November here in Florida, my body, my soul, my mind was really like craving and needing that nurturing winter. And so I spent a lot of time with myself in reflection, journaling, working on my book, writing, and I was actually gardening, because in the season of weather, it was still summer. And so I was growing my food, but at the same time, I was in a winter of just my life and what I was doing. And so I hope that that analogy makes somewhat sense to all of you guys, because I think in our culture, and especially in Western society, we tend to just keep cycling through spring and summer, come up with ideas, produce, take action, have the results. And we very rarely, or maybe only for a very short period of time, actually let ourselves have a fall and have that harvest and that celebration. And we very, very rarely ever allow ourselves to have a winter. And so I hope that by me sharing this and this kind of metaphor concept of the seasons, that it gives you permission and allows you to kind of look at anytime you're in a place where you feel like you're pushing and you're just, potentially meeting resistance or you're not enjoying what you're doing. I would say just pause and think about, where you are and where you have been in those cycles of the season. So, the last thing that I want to share with you guys today is something that I'm really excited about. And it's actually the reason that I really felt ready to come back and do the podcast. So, you may or may not know, so I am turning 50 in January. It's absolutely crazy. And I have been thinking about this, for a few months now because it's a big milestone, especially for a woman. I mean, for men too. But like as a woman, I'm thinking about, I can remember when I was 25, like how all of a sudden did 25 more years go by and I'm almost 50. And I'm really proud of the woman that I have grown into, and everything that I have been on this crazy earth journey. But one thing that I realized, and like I mentioned to you guys, is I really felt like I had stopped living, like living fully, and had stopped really just going on adventures and being out there in the world. And so I started thinking about how much I miss that and how I used to have such a spirit inside me, of adventure and of trying new things. And so I came up with this concept, and it's partially inspired by a coworker that years ago did something similar for one of her milestone birthdays. So I'm going to embark on this adventure of doing 50 new things. So either trying new things, going to new things, exploring new places. I'm going to keep the rules like somewhat loose here. So really starting now, to give myself a little bit of wiggle room, and all through next year of my 50th year around the sun, I'm going to be every week or two embarking on a different adventure and really pushing myself outside of my comfort zone. And I really want to share that with you guys. Like, what is the activity or the place that I'm going to and experiencing? And, get content during the experience, and the person that is either leading it or it's their business, really have them involved in the process too. And so that way I'm still sharing stories of entrepreneurs, but it's all kind of tied back to different things that I'm experiencing and that I'm trying, and then, really recording episodes around all of those concepts. And so it's something that really makes me excited. And I feel, really passionate about sharing, doing all of these new things with you guys. So, this concept of 50 new things for 50, again, is just me trying to share with you guys my process of really getting back out there and living again. Because, like I said, I think a lot of us on this kind of spiritual consciousness awakening journey, can unknowingly to ourselves kind of self isolate at times because it's a lot of information. And whether you are going through a period of reflection and you're wanting to, not be around to people, like that's totally fine. I get that. Trust me, I did that for close to 2 years. And then I got to a point where I realized I really missed being here and being out there, like in the world and not just on a screen all day interacting. And so that's where this came to me. And a dear friend and mentor of mine, Ryan Keys, who was on the podcast earlier this year, we had a conversation just about, why are we here? And, when we get to the end of our life, what are we really going to think about? And is it, you know, this, that, whatever you worked on? Maybe. But are you going to think about where were the opportunities where you missed like living fully? And with living fully, opening ourselves up to love. So I'm really excited. I'm going to start next week, and I'm excited to share with you the very first thing of the 50 new things that I am starting to participate in. And I really just hope that it starts to plant seeds and, give you guys ideas if you're looking for things to do, but also just remind you that we're all human and we're all here to experience this planet and this journey, and this beautiful thing that we call life, and get out there and really like live. And it's okay if it's scary, and it's okay if you don't know where to start. And so I hope that these episodes will show you different ideas and different places to start. And so, as you can see, I'm so emotional. I'm so really honored to have this space. And for those of you that have followed the podcast and supported the podcast, I appreciate you so much. I'm just really excited to be able to be at this point in my life. And I am very hopeful and very, very just full of joy and full of love. And I want to share that with all of you. So I appreciate your continued support. And like I said, all kinds of new episodes. I'm still going to be interviewing entrepreneurs and sharing their journeys. I'll still be sharing spiritual insights, but a big focus is going to be this adventure that I'm embarking on with 50 new things for me turning 50. So I hope you'll join me, and I hope that you will continue to support the podcast and share it. It really helps so very much. So until next time, I wish you much peace, love, and joy as you continue to pursue being soul aligned.